Hi, good morning. I am attorney Louis Valencia with the offices of Valencia and Diaz, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Telephone number 513-618-2005, 513-618-2005. We are a law firm with four attorneys. Myself and Defilia Diaz are the partners, and then we also have Pedro Diaz and Rocio Berlanga. Okay. We are bilingual, we speak both English and Spanish. We handle immigration cases throughout the entire country, and we handle state issues here in the state of Ohio. And in particular, today, I'm going to talk about domestic relations cases that we handle here in Ohio and how those work, because sadly, many people need those in order for them to function. Okay, so getting divorced in the state of Ohio. I always say there's two ways to get divorced. One is the easy way, and the other one is the hard way. So the easy way is what people call a dissolution. And that is when everybody, the two of you, come to an agreement on every single term or factor of the divorce. You write up your agreement, you submit it to the court reviews it to see if they accept it. And when I say to see if they accept it, they're going to look at the format, right? Did you put all the terms that you needed to? Did you include all the language that you had to include, right? There are requirements in terms of the language. Now, most of the courts have some forms that you can fill out, but they are forms with blanks, and you've got to know what to put in the blanks. Not all courts have everything you need readily available for you to fill out, and they're certainly not going to tell you what you need to fill out. That's up to you, because as far as the court is concerned, to tell you what you need to fill out is the unauthorized practice of law. In other words, they're helping you be an attorney, and they're guiding you and telling you how to do things, and that's against the rules. So they won't do that. Okay. But you can try to do that on your own. There are some courts even that will have a clinic in the domestic relations court for low to moderate income people where they can get free help to do that. If you do not come to, well, once you then get your documents approved, the court will schedule an appointment for you and your spouse to be present, and the court will review the agreement that you guys made with you individually to make sure that you are both in agreement with what you wrote. You were honest about everything. And the court will tell you, look, if you lied, you can get into some big trouble, right? And then the court will decide whether they will accept it. And I will tell you that if your agreement is unfair to one person or another, the court can deny accepting your agreement. They can say, no, we won't accept this. But assuming that it's fair and reasonable, after you answer your questions, they will accept it. A big thing that can stop the divorce is if the female is pregnant. If, wife is pregnant, either wife, right? If there's two wives, either wife is pregnant, you cannot go forward with the divorce. You have to wait until the child is born before you can go forward with the divorce. Now, if you don't come to an agreement on absolutely everything, then you have to do what is just typically called a divorce, which means that the judge is going to decide whatever it is you could not come to an agreement on. So what are the things that you have to include in a divorce? What are the things that you have to agree on? First is obviously the termination of the marriage, right? That's the easy part. I no longer want to be husband and wife. Now, for that, it doesn't matter if both people are in agreement. In other words, I can say I want a divorce, and my spouse can say, but you're the love of my life. I don't want a divorce. I want to stay married. It doesn't matter. As long as one of you says that you want to get divorced, then the court will grant the divorce. You also don't need to prove why. In other words, you don't have to prove that your spouse was unfaithful to you or that they abused you. All you have to say is we're incompatible. We don't get along. Okay. That's all you have to say. It's called a no fault divorce. It's not anybody's fault we want to get divorced. Now, if you want to say that your spouse cheated on you, you can, right? And you can present your evidence as to why, but the court doesn't really care. You're not going to get a better deal in your divorce because your spouse cheated on you or because your spouse was abusive to you than if you simply say, we don't get along. Okay. So that's the first thing. And that's the easy one. Next comes the money. The money is one of the most important things as far as the court is concerned. When I talk about money, I'm talking not only about the money that you have or the assets that you have, the valuable property that you have, but also the debt that you have. When I talk about money, it's both things. You owe money, that's money. Okay. You have a loan, that's money. You have a mortgage, that's money. You have a credit card, that's money. So they look at both of those things and they add everything up. And when I talk about adding everything up, they add everything up that is marital property. What is marital property? Marital property is anything and everything you obtained from the moment you said, I do. That's really important because it doesn't matter how long you lived together. It does not matter how many kids you had. It matters when you said, I do. So if you lived together for 10 years and you just said, I do last year, marital assets are from last year, okay, forward. So when you said, I do, until the end of the marriage, that is your marital assets. Now, the end of the marriage is not as easy to determine as the beginning of the marriage. The beginning of the marriage is, like I said, the day you said, I do. That's easy. The end of the marriage can be the day you file the demand for divorce. It can be the day that the court orders that you have valuations done of your property. So you send an appraiser out to see how much your property is worth. It can be the day that the divorce is finalized. The judge could also determine that you guys have been living separate and apart for the last 3 years. So the end of the marriage was 3 years ago. But whatever that window is, anything and everything that you bought or got into debt for or earned money is marital property. So you work and your spouse doesn't. It's not your money, it's both your monies. Okay. Your salary is marital asset, is a marital property. So the courts look at all of that and they add up all of the good money, right? All the money that you have in the bank accounts, all the money that you have in your retirement accounts, all the money that you have in real estate, and then they add up all the debts, the mortgages, the credit cards, the loans, the car loans, all of that stuff. They subtract the debt from the assets, and this is how much money we have that's marital property. So you have for sake of argument, you have $1 million in assets, but you've got 500,000 in debt. You've got $500,000 that's a marital asset. The court starts with the idea that marital assets are going to be divided 50-50. That doesn't mean that they're married to that. That doesn't mean that they're stuck on that. That's where they start. They start with the idea that all marital assets are going to be divided 50-50. However, the court is open to hearing why 50-50 would not be a fair and equitable division of property. So for instance, you've got little kids. You need to stay at home and you need to take care of the kids. Well, maybe we need to give you a little bit more than 50%, right? You are taking on all of the debt. So you've got to pay for a lot of things. Well, maybe we need to give you a little bit more of the money, right? So there are different factors that can come into play in terms of deciding how to divide that marital debt. But it always starts with the concept that it will be 50-50. Now we then look at the children. That comes next if you've got children. So with children, we've got to do 3 different things. The first is we've got to decide the custody. While you are married, you have what's called shared parenting. Custody is not who the kids live with. Custody is who has the right to opine. In other words, is my child going to play American football or Latin soccer, right? Which one? Who decides? Is my child going to go to Dr. Smith or Dr. Johnson? Who decides? Is my child going to spend summer vacations here in Cincinnati or on the beaches of Cancun? Who decides? That's what custody is. So when you're married, you have shared parenting, which means the law assumes that the two of you work together to make decisions in the best interest of your child, that the two of you agree, right? One way or another, you agree. The courts prefer that you maintain shared parenting after a divorce, but as of right now, they're not going to obligate you to do it. So this is where something like domestic violence can come into play. Obviously, if one of you has suffered domestic violence at the hands of the other, maybe you're not the best set of parents to talk over issues about your kids together and make decisions together. maybe we should give sole custody to just one of you, right? So they look at those factors to decide if sole custody would be appropriate, or if the parents refuse to work in shared parenting, who's going to have sole custody, which means one parent makes all the decisions and the other parent is just along for the ride. After they make that determination of custody, then they go on to who is going to be the residential parent. Residential parent does not mean where the children are going to live. Residential parent is which parent's home is the legal address for the children to determine what school district has the legal obligation to educate that child. So maybe the kids are going to live with mom, but mom is in a school district that's not as good as dad. Dad's in a better school district. Well, then let's name dad's house. Let's name dad the residential parent. That way the kids can go to the school in dad's neighborhood and not have to go to the school in mom's neighborhood. Okay. That's what residential parent is. Next, we then go on to parenting time. How much time the child is going to spend with each parent. As of right now in the state of Ohio, what they think, excuse me, my allergies make me cough in the morning here. But what they think is that the worst parent in the world deserves at least 1 weekend every 2 weeks and 1 afternoon every week. 1 weekend every 2 weeks is usually from Friday at 6 p.m. until Sunday at 6 p.m. Although some courts will say, let's go to Monday morning when they start school. Okay. Drop them off at school. And that's twice a month, right? Every other weekend. And then 1 afternoon a week is normally like a Tuesday or a Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Just enough time to go out, have dinner, have a nice dessert, come back home. That is the minimum parenting time that the courts think even the worst parent has. So you might say, but he doesn't even deserve that much, or she doesn't even deserve that much. Well, if you think that they deserve less, either you have to have an agreement to that, or you've got to prove that they are otherwise a danger to your children during that time. So maybe they're an alcoholic, maybe they're a drug addict, maybe they work all weekend and they won't be home to be with the kids, right? You've got to be able to prove factors for them to decide to give less time. You can also agree to more time, or you can fight for more time, right? Once you've got those 3 things decided, now we have to calculate child support. And child support is an obligation. It doesn't matter if you are spending 50% of the time with mom and 50% of the time with dad, and maybe even mom and dad earn the same amount. We still are obligated by law to calculate child support. And there is a formula that the state of Ohio uses, which basically is what's mom's income, what is dad's income, how many children do each one of them have to support. And obviously the kids that they have in common count for both sides. Okay. It's not like you divide those up. Okay. But maybe one or the other have other children that they have to support. And then what's the cost of health insurance for the kids? So they look at those factors, and that's really the only thing they look at. They don't really look at, Johnny plays on select soccer and that costs $1,000 a month or $1,000 a year or whatever per season. I think it is $1,000 per. At least it was when my son played select soccer. $1,000 a season. So they don't look at those things. My child goes to private school. No, they're not looking at that either, right? So they use that to calculate the child support, and then whatever that number is, that's what you're obligated to pay. Maybe you've both agreed that that's too much. Maybe you've both agreed that it should be less. Well, then you've got to explain to the court why it should be less. I know that the calculation came out to be $900 a month, but dad is the one that takes them to every single soccer practice. Dad is the one that plays for their select soccer. Dad is the one that does, 1, 2, 3, 4. And because of that, we've agreed that we're going to reduce the child support from $900 a month to $600 a month. Okay. If you've got reasons that you can justify it, the court will accept it, but you have to have reasons. You can't just say 900 is too much, we're going to do 600, or we agreed on 600, so we're going to do that. No, you have to have reasons. All right. So that calculates the child support. Now we come to the next part. Spousal support. Is there going to be spousal support? That's a question. It's not an issue, right? It's not like child support. There will be child support. You have to calculate child support. Will there be spousal support? Not necessarily. We have to take a look at a number of different factors to see if the court wants to order spousal support. And I will tell you, courts, for the most part, don't like to order spousal support. Nowadays, they think, hey, you're both adults, you're big boys, big girls, get out there and work. You don't need spousal support. However, they are willing to consider it under certain circumstances. So they'll look at a bunch of factors, right? They'll look at the fact that maybe your incomes are very, very different. So he earns $200,000 a year and you earn $20,000 a year. Maybe we should be considering spousal support. He's got a doctoral degree, you have a GED. Maybe we should consider spousal support. He's working full time, you're working part time, not because you want to, because that won't count, but because you have to, because you've got little babies at home that you have to take care of. Maybe we should do spousal support. Okay. So they're going to look at a bunch of different factors to determine if you should then be qualified for spousal support. And just because they decide that you're going to qualify for spousal support doesn't mean it's for life. They look at how long you've been married, right? So normally, not always, everybody's different. Normally, you can expect somewhere around 1/3 of the time that you've been married in spousal support. So does this mean if you've been married 3 years, you can expect 1 year of spousal support? No, because 3 years is a short marriage. You're probably not going to be entitled to spousal support if you've only been married 3 years. But what about 6? No, that's really still a very short marriage. You're probably not going to be entitled to spousal support. Doesn't mean not to consider it, not to look at the factors. You always need to look at the factors, right? But it's unlikely on such a short marriage. You really kind of have to get over the 10-year mark before you really have to start considering spousal support based on the length of the marriage. Now, obviously, if you've had a 30-year marriage and you're getting divorced and you're both in your late 50s, you might be paying spousal support for the rest of your employable life, right? So how long are you going to be working? When are you going to retire? You might be paying spousal support till the day you retire. It's unlikely that you're going to be ordered to pay spousal support after retirement. And even if you are, you can always file a motion with the court once you retire to have your spousal support either reduced or taken away, because obviously your income is going to change dramatically when you stop working and you retire. And the courts will take that into consideration. So let me take a look at some of these questions that are here. And let's see. Omar is a question in Spanish. He says, if I had an IDU, is that maybe he's saying OVI? Omar, ¿me estás diciendo manejando bajo la influencia del alcohol? I can't really tell from his question. He says, but I've been a victim, a robbery victim. What do I do? Okay, Omar. I think you should call the office and we can help you with that. I'm not really sure what you're asking, but if you've been a victim of robbery, you could qualify for papers based on that. Omar, no entiendo bien tu pregunta. Llámenos a la oficina 500-6618-2005, 500-6618-2005. Con mucho gusto te podemos ayudar. Si fuiste víctima de un robo, puede ser que califiques para papeles, pero no entiendo lo que me estás diciendo de IDDU. No sé si me estás diciendo manejando bajo la influencia del alcohol o qué. All right, moving over to TikTok here. Let me go back in time here and see the questions. Let's see if I can scroll up. Are we doing immigration forgiveness? Yes, of course we are. Give us a call, 513-618-2005. And it's waivers, right? Not forgiveness, but waivers. Buenos días, bendiciones, muchas gracias. Gisela, bendiciones para ti también. Let's see. What happens if my husband buys a new car for me, but I make the car payment from day one until now? Well, doesn't matter who bought it. If you're married, it's marital property. And it doesn't matter whose name is on the title. If you're married, it's marital property. This is called dower. Okay, so maybe some of you have gotten into watching old movies or read old books or whatever. And in the old days, and I'm talking like over 200 years ago, really less than that, but women were not allowed to own property. They couldn't own real estate. They couldn't own money. They couldn't own anything, right? So, what did I do for my daughter? I wanted to leave her inheritance. What am I doing? How do I handle this? Well, when she got married, I would give my daughter's inheritance, the money that I wanted to give her, the property I wanted to give her, I would give it to her husband. That was called a dower, okay? A dowry, which is why, honestly, some men married some women back then. They've got rich parents. I'm going to get some real estate. I'm going to get a title. I'm going to become a lord. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to marry her even though she's ugly, right? Or whatever. So that used to happen. It was called dowry. So as the law progressed, they changed the word from dowry to dower. Same difference, right? It's just a different way that they're using it. And that was because women couldn't own real estate. Now that women can own real estate, they kept the concept. And what they say is whatever you buy while you're married, your spouse, whether they're on title or not, has a dower interest in that property. Now, what does that dower interest equate to? We don't really know for certain. Legally speaking, a dower interest is a 1/3 life estate in whatever that asset is. What does that mean? A life estate means it's not mine. I can't sell it, but I get to use it for as long as I'm alive. It's common to see life estate in real estate, right? So, for instance, I remember when I bought my first house, I was married. I gave my mother a life estate in my house. That way, my mom had a place to live if I died, and she would be able to live there till the day she died. And there was nothing my wife could have done about it, right? That's a life estate. Maybe not nice for some people, but hey, I wanted to take care of my mom. So in this case, husband buys her a car. We don't know who the car is titled to. Maybe the husband, maybe her, but it's marital property. They both own the car, and it doesn't matter who paid it. She paid it, he paid it. As long as they're married, it's considered both their money. So it's like they both paid it. They both own it. They both paid it, regardless of who's on title, regardless of who wrote the check or out of what bank account it came. So let me see here. What is the Department of DHS in an application? And this is in Spanish. ¿Qué es el Departamento de DHS en una aplicación? DHS is the Department of Homeland Security. Déjame ver. En español eso sería el Departamento de Seguridad del Hogar, pero no estamos hablando del hogar, estamos hablando del país. ¿Cómo? Fronteriza. Ok. Entonces, es eso, es inmigración. Eso es lo que es parte de inmigración. Let's see. Great information. Thanks. You're very welcome. Wow. I have sole custody of my daughter in Nigeria. Is that still valid in the States? That's a good question. So if you went to court and you were granted sole custody of your daughter in Nigeria, what you need to do is you need to have that document sent to the Department of External Affairs. It may have a slightly different name in Nigeria. Department of External Affairs, and ask them to put what's called an apostle on that document. An apostle is a seal. It's a seal that was created in an international treaty out of Geneva back in the, 1940s, I think. And what that is it is a seal that lets every other country in the world know that the document that carries that seal is a legitimate document from the country of origin, and that it should be given full faith and credit. Full faith and credit means accepted here. Then when you bring that document over here with the apostle, you take it to your local court, and that might be a juvenile court, that might be a domestic relations court, whatever, and you file it as a foreign order. Okay, you go to court, you say, hey, I've got this order from a foreign court. I need to file it here. Now, if it's written in whatever language it might be written in, you have to have it translated to English, and you'll have to have an affidavit of certification of the translation. In other words, somebody certifying, and it's better to use a court-certified interpreter, okay, that says that this is a actual, true translation of the original document. And you would take both, and that would need to be notarized. You would take both to the court and have them filed as a foreign order. And then that makes it valid here. So a couple steps, but yes, it is valid here. Okay. Let's see. Chuy dice a sacar permiso, but I don't know what you're talking about. No sé de qué me estás hablando porque solo veo a sacar permiso. I only see to get permission, but I'm not sure what that is. What they're talking about. Let's see. And this one's in Spanish. Hi, my husband just got his green card, and he says he can help me get my papers. So I'm going to answer them in Spanish. Hola, mi esposo acaba de obtener su green card. Me dice que puede ayudarme a arreglar mis papeles. Posiblemente. Depende de varios factores. Llámenos a la oficina 566-18-2005, 566-18-2005. I'm going to explain this both in English and in Spanish. One thing that you have to understand whenever we're talking about, can somebody apply for me, give me papers? Can somebody do this? Can somebody do that? Whatever. There's two questions that you need to ask in that situation. One is, can the person who wants to give you the benefit, can they do it, right? Then the other question you have to ask is, are you eligible to receive the benefit that they want to give you? Okay. En estos casos, Edson, hay dos preguntas que uno se tiene que hacer. Lo primero es si la persona que te quiere dar el beneficio tiene el derecho de otorgarte ese beneficio. Y lo segundo es si tú eres elegible para aceptar el beneficio que te quieren dar. So an example I always give people is my receptionist is a single young woman. So she has the right to propose marriage to me if she wants to. She's single. I am still a married man. I'm not yet divorced. I'm in the process of getting divorced, but I'm not yet divorced. So I don't have the right to accept that proposition that she's making me, right? The offer that she's making me. So it's a two-edged sword that you've got to look at. Entonces, Edson, lo que yo siempre le digo a la gente es que, por ejemplo, en el caso mío, tengo una recepcionista que es soltera. Ella, por ser soltera, tiene el derecho de proponerme matrimonio si ella quisiera. Yo, como soy un hombre casado, me estoy divorciando, pero no estoy divorciado todavía. Como soy un hombre casado, yo no tengo el derecho a aceptar la propuesta o el beneficio que ella me quiere dar. ¿Ok? Entonces, son las dos cosas que uno se tiene que preguntar. Por eso digo, llámenos a la oficina Edson 566-18-2005, 566-18-2005, y con mucho gusto te ayudamos. Okay, wait. Let's see, where am I? All right, looks like I got all the questions there. Let me see if there's any in Instagram. Nope. And there's one here in YouTube. Good morning, lawyer. Do you also do divorces? Yes. I was married to her for 13 years. We got married in Illinois. I'm in Mexico, and I can't go to the United States. Yes, we do the divorces. It does not matter where you got divorced. It matters where you are or where she is. So if she were here in Ohio, we could do the divorce. If she's in Illinois, we don't go to Illinois to do the divorce. Since he's in Mexico, I'm also going to tell him in Spanish about that. Okay. Sí, nosotros hacemos divorcios. No importa dónde se casaron, importa dónde están. Entonces, si ella estuviera aquí en Ohio, sí podemos hacer el divorcio, pero si ella está en Illinois, no podemos hacerlo. Pero sí, sin importar que tú estás en México o importar dónde se casaron, sí se pueden divorciar en cualquier parte de los Estados Unidos, siempre y cuando alguno de los dos están allí. And then Francesco asked, is different a gay marriage divorce? And I'm not sure if he's Hispanic or American. He wrote it in English, but just by the name, so I'm going to answer in both English and Spanish. And no, there is no difference in the divorce law for a gay marriage versus a heterosexual marriage. No hay ninguna diferencia entre un matrimonio gay o un matrimonio heterosexual. Entonces, la ley es igual, no importa, y ya. Okay, so I believe that's it. I believe that's all the questions. Thank you very much for joining us in our very first English live social media blast here on divorce. When you have questions, please give us a call, 513-618-2005, 513-618-2005. If there are topics that you would like us to discuss in this brand new English live thing that we're going to be doing on Fridays, let us know, and we will be happy to add that to the list of topics. And here, one last question. I'm going to get married with somebody from the United States. I entered with a visa. What is the estimate for me to receive a work permit? And what is the estimate for me to receive a green card? I'm going to answer both in English and in Spanish. So first in English, we'd have to do a consultation because we obviously don't know any of the issues of it. It's kind of like saying, what's it going to cost me to build a house? I don't know if we need to do a basement or not. I don't know if it's going to be on a slab. I don't know if it's going to be a 2-story, a 1-story. I don't know what kind of finishes you're going to want on the house. I don't know if the lot that you have has problems like, water being drained into it. I mean, there's all kinds of issues that can come up. So there's no way to give a price without first talking and knowing the issues of the person. We charge $50 for a consultation without mattering how long the consultation takes. I would say most of my consultations take at least half an hour to an hour, the vast majority of them, because we delve into everything. And so then after the consultation, then based on that, we're able to tell you an estimated price to do things and length of time to get them done. Fabricio, no te puedo contestar la pregunta así nomás, pues porque no sé nada de los hechos del caso tuyo. Te urge, te aconsejo que nos llames 513-618-2005, 513-618-2005, para hablar de los hechos. Con eso te podemos decir cuánto tiempo se estima que se va a tardar el caso, más también cuánto va a costar. Y la razón por la cual no te puedo contestar cuánto esas cosas es porque no sé nada de los hechos de tu situación. Y es como preguntar cuánto va a costar construir una casa. No sé si se va a necesitar un sótano o no, o si lo va a hacer simplemente sobre un concreto. No sé cuántos pisos se va a requerir para la casa, los acabados. No sé tampoco si el lote tiene problemas de drenaje o otras cosas que se tienen que resolver primero antes de poder construir. Entonces, cuando nos llamas, las consultas son a $50 sin importar el tiempo que se demora. Las mías normalmente se demoran mínimo media hora, normalmente hasta 1 hora. Y con eso te digo exactamente qué es lo que estimamos que se va a tardar y también qué es lo que estimamos que va a costar. ¿Ok? Bueno, all right, guys. That's, wait. How long after I'm married to apply for residency? You don't have to wait. The very first day that you get married, you can start the process that same day. And I'm not sure based on the way they wrote this, if English is their first language or Spanish. So I also mentioned this in Spanish. No tienes que esperar algún tiempo determinado después de casarse para iniciar tu proceso inmigratorio. Se puede iniciar desde el primer día. And Oscar says, I have TPS, temporary protected status. It's an immigration term. Wants to know if he can go to El Salvador. For the U visa, and if that affects his travel. There's no way I can answer that with the very little bit he's told me here. I would need to know a whole lot more. And that's what I'm going to tell him now in Spanish. Oscar, no hay manera de que yo te pueda contestar esa pregunta. Falta muchos detalles de allí para yo poder contestar esa pregunta. Lo que entiendo es que tienes TPS y quieres saber si puedes viajar a El Salvador para aplicar para la visa U. Llámenos 500-618-2005, 500-618-2005 y con mucho gusto te podemos contestar la pregunta. Here's another one. My partner got papers for his ex. Can he also get papers for me? It's in Spanish. I will answer that in Spanish. Without knowing more details, I can't answer that question either. Probably he can or she can, but there can always be factors that could influence that, since I know that her partner is probably divorced from what I'm hearing. There are things that can come out in a divorce that could prevent him or her from being able to now petition for another immigrant. No te puedo contestar esa pregunta con los pocos hechos que están allí. Vas a tener que llamar a la oficina para una consulta, 500-618-2005. Se me hace, por lo que me estás diciendo, que él o ella está divorciado o se está divorciando, y el divorcio puede impedir la posibilidad de él poder arreglarte a ti también. Por eso necesito hablar para saber mucho más de los hechos. Él se acaba de divorciar, se quiere casar conmigo, pues bueno, está bien, él se puede casar. Esa parte es fácil, pero no es un hecho que te va a poder arreglar los papeles. He just got divorced, wants to get married to her or him. And yeah, they can do that. They can absolutely get married, but that doesn't mean you'll be able to fix her papers. Default divorce granted child support set. Other party is requesting new trial. What now? Well, that's up to the judge. If they want to grant the new trial or not, they can, but they don't have to. The judge can say, no, we won't give you a new trial. If they do, then you go through the whole process all over again. Then they ask, how long do we have to wait to get married? You don't have to wait. You can, as soon as the divorce decree is signed, which normally takes about 2 weeks after the divorce hearing, you can get married that same day. No tienes que esperar ningún tiempo. Tan pronto que la sentencia de divorcio o el decreto de divorcio sea firmado por el juez, que normalmente se tarda como 2 semanas después de la audiencia, se pueden casar el mismo día. Si le puso child support if they put child support on, but then it doesn't say anymore. Okay, guys. So that's it. Oh, wait, there's one more. Me estoy divorciando por violencia. Estoy en proceso de cambiar mi aplicación a VAWA. ¿Cuáles son las pruebas para soportar que fue un matrimonio de buena fe porque duró menos de un año? So she says she's getting divorced and she wants to now apply for VAWA, which is what's called violence against women. And she wants to know what proof she need to be able to prove that it was a valid marriage because they were married for less than 1 year. Yo no te puedo decir exactamente qué pruebas vas a necesitar. Obviamente, cualquier cosa que tú puedes mostrar para mostrar que el matrimonio fue válido, pero si nos llamas y hablamos, con mucho gusto, después de la consulta, se me hace más fácil hablar de qué cosas se puede utilizar para eso. Y obviamente nosotros también llevamos esos casos. So he's claiming he was never notified, but it's in all court records. Okay, well, again, call us. Happy to help. Abogado, entré segunda vez por la frontera y pedí asilo. Es seguro ganarlo. He's like, I entered for the second time through the border and asked for asylum. Is it guaranteed to win? The only thing that's guaranteed in life is that someday we're all going to die. Unfortunately, nothing else is guaranteed. Lamentablemente, lo único seguro en la vida es que todos nos vamos a morir algún día. Nada más te puedo asegurar. Time plan if there's no legal custody agreement. Okay. Questions like that don't make sense to me. I don't understand what you're asking, and it's affecting the children negative. Give us a call. Happy to have a consult. Happy to give you some better information when we can have an actual conversation, as opposed to trying to understand what you're saying in these TikTok texts, which are very short. But yeah, common issues, unfortunately. Give us a call. 513-618-2005, 513-618-2005. I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. And remember what I always say, if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. Have a good weekend. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.